story in Action News is the mysterious death of a South Jersey woman, now drawing international attention.
Now, tonight, we know new details from authorities about her death. She was on a vacation of a lifetime in Zanzibar, Tanzania, which is on the east coast of Africa. Action News reporter John Paul live in the Satellite Center now with the very latest, and the family desperate for answers. John.
The investigation into the death of 31-year-old lifestyle influencer Ashlee Robinson, known to her thousands of followers as Ashlee Jenae, has reached a critical and agonizing stalemate. While the vibrant images of her 31st birthday celebration in Zanzibar still linger on social media, the reality behind the closed doors of the Zuri Zanzibar resort has become a complex web of conflicting medical reports and administrative silence. To understand why the world isn't hearing a definitive conclusion, one must first examine the fragmented and contradictory findings of the initial medical examinations. The primary source of confusion lies in the existence of two distinct medical assessments provided in the immediate aftermath of her death. Following her discovery in an unresponsive state on the night of April 8, 2026, Ashlee was transported to a local medical facility. The first hospital report noted an unidentified mark around her neck and included a statement attributed to her fiancé Joe McCann, claiming he found her in a state of self-harm. However, when she was later moved to a second, more specialized hospital where she was eventually pronounced dead, the medical terminology shifted. This second report listed the cause of death as cerebral hypoxia resulting from strangulation and suffocation. The discrepancy between suicide by hanging, the initial narrative released by local Tanzanian police, and the broader, more clinical strangulation and suffocation is where the forensic friction begins. In a legal and investigative sense, strangulation does not inherently imply the presence of a third party, but it does mandate a rigorous examination of the ligature marks and the internal trauma to the neck structures. Her family, speaking from their home in the United States, has pointed to this linguistic ambiguity as a major red flag. They argue that the unidentified marks and the lack of a formal, transparent autopsy report suggest that the scene was not processed with the forensic depth required for a high-profile death. Furthermore, the silence from Tanzanian officials is compounded by the jurisdictional limbo that often occurs when an American citizen dies on foreign soil. While the U.S. Embassy and Department of State are involved, their role is primarily to facilitate communication and ensure the body is returned home. They do not have the authority to conduct an independent investigation on Tanzanian sovereign land. As of late April 2026, the official autopsy results remain pending or under review by the Zanzibar Director of Investigations, Zuberi Chembera. This delay is fueled by the fact that investigators are reportedly holding the passport of Joe McCann, treating him as a key witness while they wait for the toxicology and detailed forensic findings to confirm if the physical evidence matches the witness testimonies. Until those documents are released, the how and why of Ashlee Robinson's death remain locked behind a wall of bureaucratic procedure and international protocol. As the sun dipped below the horizon of the Indian Ocean on April 8, 2026, the curated perfection of Ashlee Robinson's birthday getaway shattered. Before we dive into the chilling timeline of that night, make sure to like and subscribe to Noir Case Files for more deep dives into the forensic truths of high-profile cases. In this chapter, we examine the critical window between a domestic dispute and a devastating phone call, a period of 11 hours that has become the focal point of the family's quest for justice. The friction began long before the emergency sirens. According to hotel staff at the Zuri Zanzibar, Ashlee and her fiancé, Joe McCann, had been engaged in what was described as a frequent and domestic conflict since their arrival on April 4th. This tension reached a breaking point on the night of April 8th. The resort's management, prioritizing the safety and peace of their guests, took the unusual step of intervening. Security protocols were enacted, and McCann was moved to a separate villa, located approximately a 10-minute walk from the room where Ashlee remained. This physical separation was intended to de-escalate the situation, but instead it set the stage for a tragic and solitary timeline. The most haunting element of this case is the massive communication gap reported by Ashlee's mother, Yolanda Denise Andres. She revealed that when McCann finally reached out to the family on April 9th, the information was not only shocking, but delayed. He reportedly told her that Ashlee had done something to herself and was being taken to the hospital. When her mother pressed for a timeline, the answer was staggering. The incident had occurred 11 hours prior to the call. For nearly half a day, as Ashlee fought for her life in a Zanzibar medical facility, her family in the United States was left in the dark, unaware that their vibrant daughter was in a state of cerebral hypoxia. This 11-hour void raises harrowing questions for investigators and digital forensic experts alike. Why was the family not notified immediately by the person closest to her? According to witness accounts, McCann returned to the room with hotel security, which is when Ashlee was discovered unresponsive in a closet with a belt around her neck. While local police initially leaned toward a narrative of self-harm, the delay in reporting, combined with the fact that McCann is a prominent figure in the high-stakes crypto world, has led the public and the family to scrutinize every second of that missing time. As the Tanzanian authorities hold McCann's passport and review the resort's surveillance logs, the world waits to see if the digital footprint of that night matches the verbal testimony provided by those who were there. In the wake of Ashlee Robinson's death, a profound divide has emerged between the official police narrative and the forensic reality presented by independent observers. This two versions of truth dynamic is common in high-profile international cases, but in the Robinson investigation, the stakes are magnified by the physical evidence found, or perhaps overlooked, at the scene. To understand the friction, one must look at the specific mechanics of the discovery within the villa, and how different parties interpret the same set of facts. The first version, maintained by the Zanzibar police in their early press briefings, suggests a tragic but clear-cut case of self-harm. This version relies heavily on the testimony of Joe McCann and the initial observation of the scene. According to these reports, Ashlee was found in a walk-in closet, and the presence of a ligature, specifically a belt, was used to quickly categorize the incident as a suicide. In this version, the physical marks on her neck are viewed as consistent with hanging. For the local authorities, the domestic dispute earlier that evening provided a psychological catalyst, and the case was initially treated with a level of finality that the family found deeply disturbing. However, a second, more clinical version of the truth began to emerge as soon as the medical reports from the specialized facility reached the family's hands. This version focuses on the specific term strangulation and suffocation, and the lack of traditional indicators associated with a standard hanging. Independent forensic experts note that in cases of self-inflicted hanging, the V-shaped ligature mark is typical. However, if the marks are horizontal or involve significant internal trauma to the hyoid bone or larynx without a vertical pull, the suspicion shifts toward manual or ligature strangulation by a second party. The family's legal team has pointed out that Ashlee's social media activity just hours before, showing her dancing, smiling, and celebrating her soft life era, is psychologically inconsistent with the state of mind required for such a sudden and violent act. The friction between these two versions is further complicated by the silent evidence of the room itself. In a modern resort like the Zuri Zanzibar, forensic investigators look for more than just physical trauma. They look for signs of a struggle, the positioning of furniture, and the cast-off of digital data. If the struggle was as intense as the hospital reports of suffocation might suggest, the scene should have reflected that chaos. Yet the initial reports described a scene that was strangely sterilized. As the family pushes for a secondary, independent autopsy to be performed in the United States, the question remains, does the physical evidence confirm a desperate act of a woman alone, or does it tell the story of a struggle that the first responders failed to document? This chapter of the investigation remains the most contentious, as the world waits for the science to speak louder than the initial statements. As the investigation into Ashlee Robinson's death enters its third week, the focus has shifted from the medical ward to the physical architecture of the Zuri Zanzibar resort. In a world where every movement is tracked by digital breadcrumbs, the resort's surveillance system stands as the most critical silent witness to the events of April 8, 2026. Ashlee's father, Harry Robinson, has been vocal in his demand for these logs, stating, "There's cameras everywhere at a resort, and that will match the timeline." This chapter explores the forensic vacuum created by the missing footage and the jurisdictional fiction preventing its release. The resort, a high-end destination known for its privacy and soft life aesthetic, is equipped with a sophisticated security network designed to protect its elite clientele. According to witness statements provided to the Zanzibar Director of Investigations, Zuberi Chembera, the couple's misunderstanding was significant enough that hotel management enacted a forced separation. Joe McCann was moved to a separate villa, a walk that investigators estimate takes roughly 10 minutes. The surveillance logs should, in theory, provide an indisputable record of McCann's movements during those critical hours. When he left Ashlee's villa, his path to the secondary room, and most importantly, any return trips he may have made. However, the forensic failure here lies in the lack of transparency regarding this footage. While the hotel has stated they are cooperating fully with the U.S. Embassy and local authorities, the family has yet to see a frame of the video. In international investigations, surveillance data is often classified as sensitive evidence and is withheld from the public until the final police report is filed. This creates a terrifying information gap for the family, who are left wondering if the 11-hour delay in communication matches the physical movements captured on camera. If the footage shows McCann returning to the villa during the period he was supposed to be in separate quarters, the initial suicide ruling by local police would face a catastrophic collapse. Beyond the physical cameras, there is the matter of the digital footprint, the electronic DNA of the night. Investigators are reportedly examining the keycard logs of the villa. These logs record every single time a door is opened or closed, and by which specific card. In many modern stage scene investigations, the keycard data is the undoing of a false alibi. If the door to Ashlee's villa was accessed during the window she was supposedly alone, the forensic implications are massive. As of late April, this data remains under administrative review.
Yeah, good evening, Tony. Ashlee Robinson was on the vacation of a lifetime. She was in Zanzibar, which is off the coast of Tanzania. She was there celebrating her 31st birthday. Her boyfriend of about a year and a half, Joe McCann, proposed to her on the trip, but last week something went terribly wrong. Police say Robinson was found unconscious in her villa and was rushed to the hospital where she later died. Now, her parents tell me they received a call from McCann, the boyfriend, acknowledging that something had happened, but they say it was the resort where Robinson was staying that notified the family of their daughter's death.
We look beyond the resort walls to the professional life of the man currently at the center of the Tanzanian probe. Joe McCann is not just a traveler. He is the founder of Asymmetric, a high-profile crypto hedge fund and venture outfit with backing from some of the most powerful names in Silicon Valley, including Mark Andreessen and Chris Dixon. While Ashlee, as Ashlee Jenae, built a brand around transparency, lifestyle, and soft life luxury, McCann operated in the volatile, often opaque world of digital finance. To the outside observer, the couple represented a modern power dynamic, the influential creator and the wealthy tech executive. However, reports from early 2026 suggest that the financial friction within McCann's professional world was reaching a boiling point, just as the couple departed for Zanzibar. Financial records and industry reports indicate that McCann's fund had been weathering a brutal market cycle. In December, he reportedly announced the wind-down of Asymmetric's Liquid Alpha Fund, following claims of steep losses, with some unconfirmed social media chatter suggesting the fund had plummeted by nearly 80% throughout 2025. This kind of financial pressure is a significant stressor in any relationship, but in a forensic context, it provides a backdrop for the frequent and domestic conflict reported by the staff at the Zuri Zanzibar. When a lifestyle influencer whose brand depends on the image of success is paired with a partner facing a staggering $45 million net worth fluctuation and professional instability, the private reality often clashes violently with the public persona. The Tanzanian authorities, while initially labeling the death a suicide, have not ignored these external factors. The decision to hold McCann's passport and require him to remain in the country suggests that investigators are looking for more than just physical evidence. They are looking for motive and state of mind. Forensic psychology often dictates that sudden suicides in high-pressure environments require a deep dive into the financial and emotional stability of all parties involved. As the U.S. Embassy monitors the case, the question remains, was this trip a celebration of a new engagement, or was it a final attempt to stabilize a relationship under the crushing weight of a financial empire in flux? The answer may lie in the forensic audit of the weeks leading up to their arrival in the archipelago. The investigation into Ashlee Robinson's death took a somber turn on April 24, 2026, when her remains were finally returned to her family in New Jersey. However, the homecoming did not bring the closure the family sought. Instead, it introduced new forensic and personal mysteries. As the body crossed international borders, it became clear that the physical evidence was not the only thing missing from the narrative. This chapter examines the missing pieces that have fueled the family's skepticism of the official Tanzanian suicide ruling. According to reports from the family's legal team and her father, Harry Robinson, Ashlee's body was returned without several of her personal belongings, most notably her engagement ring. For a woman whose final social media moments were defined by the joy of her engagement to Joe McCann, the absence of this specific piece of jewelry is a major forensic red flag. In a staged scene or a struggle, personal effects are often the first things to be displaced. The family has questioned whether the ring was lost in the chaos of the emergency response, withheld by authorities, or taken during the 11-hour window before they were notified of her condition. The most critical development in this chapter is the push for a secondary, independent autopsy on American soil. While the North Unguja Regional Police Commander, Benedict Mapujira, officially stated on April 20th that the cause of death was suicide by hanging, the Robinson family has vehemently rejected this conclusion. They cite the strangulation and suffocation terminology used in the later medical reports as evidence of a more violent encounter. By bringing her home, the family has shifted the forensic battlefield. A U.S.-based medical examiner can now look for microtrauma, such as petechial hemorrhaging in the eyes, or specific bruising patterns on the neck, that might have been overlooked or mischaracterized in the initial local examination. Furthermore, the silence from Joe McCann has become deafening. The family reported that since the initial delayed phone call on April 9th, communication from the fiancé has ceased. While McCann remains in Zanzibar, with his passport withheld by the Director of Investigations, the lack of direct outreach to a grieving family is being viewed through a behavioral profiling lens. In investigative journalism, the post-offense behavior of a witness is often as telling as the physical evidence. As the family awaits the results of their own forensic experts, the missing ring and the missing testimony from the last person to see her alive remain the most glaring holes in the official story. As of late April 2026, the investigation into the death of Ashlee Robinson has entered a period of intense jurisdictional friction. While the physical remains have returned to American soil, the legal and investigative authority remains firmly rooted in Zanzibar. This chapter explores the forensic tug-of-war between the Tanzanian local authorities and the growing demands for a transparent, international inquiry spearheaded by the Robinson family and the U.S. State Department. The primary point of friction lies in the classification of the investigation. The North Unguja Regional Police, led by Commander Benedict Mapujira, have maintained a steady narrative of self-harm. However, the U.S. Embassy in Dar es Salaam and the Bureau of Consular Affairs have been forced into a delicate diplomatic dance. Under international law, the host country has sole jurisdiction over a death investigation occurring within its borders. While the FBI can offer technical assistance, they cannot seize evidence, subpoena witnesses, or take over the case without an explicit invitation from the Tanzanian government. An invitation that has not been extended. This administrative divide has left the family in an agonizing state of information blackout. Despite their calls for transparency, Harry and Yolanda Robinson have reported that they are receiving more information from the media and the hotel management than from the actual investigators. The U.S. State Department has confirmed they are monitoring the case and providing all appropriate consular services, but for a grieving family, these phrases often feel like bureaucratic placeholders. The tension reached a peak when it was revealed that while the Tanzanian police were questioning Joe McCann and holding his passport, they had not officially detained him on criminal charges, citing a lack of immediate signs of foul play, despite the conflicting medical reports of strangulation. Furthermore, the friction extends to the forensic evidence itself. The family's push for a secondary autopsy in the United States is more than a search for a second opinion. It is a challenge to the scientific integrity of the local Zanzibar probe. If the U.S. medical examiner discovers trauma inconsistent with the suicide by hanging theory, it creates a massive diplomatic and legal crisis. As of April 28, the world is watching to see if the Tanzanian authorities will release the full toxicology and digital forensic logs from the Zuri Zanzibar resort, or if the case will remain stalled in the crosshairs of international protocol. The silence from the Tanzanian Director of Investigations, Zuberi Chembera, suggests that the truth is currently a prisoner of jurisdiction. The conclusion of the Ashlee Robinson case is not yet written in the annals of forensic science, but it is being shouted across the digital landscape. As of April 30, 2026, the investigation sits at a crossroads where social media influence meets international law. While local authorities in Zanzibar have attempted to close the book with a ruling of self-harm, the global community and the Robinson family refuse to let the narrative rest. This final chapter examines the legacy of the woman known as Ashlee Jenae and the persistent, unanswered questions that keep her case in the spotlight. The psychological profile of Ashlee Robinson in her final days stands in stark contrast to the official police report. Forensic psychologists often look for behavioral leakage, signs of distress or planning, in cases of suspected suicide. Yet Ashlee's digital footprint showed the opposite. She was a woman in her soft life era, celebrating a milestone birthday and a brand new engagement. Her final posts were not those of someone retreating from the world, but of someone leaning into a bright future. This dissonance is the primary driver behind the #JusticeForAshlee movement. Her followers, who saw her as a beacon of luxury and transparency, have become a digital army of investigators, dissecting every frame of her last videos for clues that the official probe may have missed. The silence that the public feels, the lack of updates on the final autopsy and the surveillance footage, is a byproduct of a system that is not built for the speed of the internet. While the family waits for the results of an independent U.S. examination, the reality is that the most vital evidence remains thousands of miles away. The 11-hour communication gap, the missing engagement ring, and the conflicting medical reports of cerebral hypoxia and strangulation remain the jagged edges of a story that doesn't quite fit together. Joe McCann, whose passport remains in the hands of Tanzanian officials, has become a symbol of this ambiguity. His silence viewed by many as a forensic void that only the full release of the resort's data can fill. Ultimately, the case of Ashlee Robinson is a sobering reminder of the vulnerabilities of traveling abroad and the complexities of seeking justice across borders. Whether the final truth aligns with the family's suspicions or the local police's findings, the impact of her death has already changed the way we view the intersection of influencer culture and personal safety. Ashlee's legacy will not be defined by the tragedy in a Zanzibar closet, but by the relentless pursuit of the truth by those who loved her. As the forensic files remain open and the independent autopsy results loom, the world remains vigilant, waiting for the science to finally provide the answers that the initial investigation could not.